Hello everyone, this is your professor once again, Danny Kabulay, on the course Recruitment and Selection. We are now in week number 10 and this is video lecture number 2. Okay, so we will talk about interview questions. What is a good interview question? Naku, maraming katangian yan. Ano ba yung magandang tanong sa isang interview? First and foremost, it has to be polite and considerate. Yung mga tanong natin dapat punong-puno ng galang at konsiderasyon. Okay? Very important. Number 2, a good interview question must be clearly worded and easily understood. So, we use only simple words. Huwag tayong gumamit ng mga salita na masyadong complicated, masyadong malalim. Okay? We should use familiar words that we will be understood. Maiintindihan tayo ng ating mga aplikante. Huwag tayo magpa-impress. Nagagamit tayo ng mga vocabulary na mahirap intindihin. Keep it short and simple. Okay? Another characteristic of a good interview question, it has to be fair and unbiased. Kasi may mga nagtatanong na masyadong biased yung tanong nila. Okay? I'll give examples later. Brief and direct to the point. Meron kasi mga interviewer, kung magtanong, ang haba-haba, ang daming intro, ang daming pasakalye. Wag po, hindi yan magandang interview question. Maliligaw, malilito, mawiwindang ang ating aplikante. At hindi niya masasagot ng tama o maayos ang question mo. So make sure that your questions are short, maiksi lang. Tapos direct to the point na kagad. Yan ang magandang interview question. So you can say something like, during this pandemic, life is so difficult and families are suffering. Can you tell me something about your family? How is the family affected by the pandemic? Wow! Ang daming tanong, barrage of questions. That's very, very long. Malilito ang aplikante. So maybe you can just shorten the question into the following. How has the pandemic affected your family? That's a good question. Okay? So it's short, it's direct to the point. It is not complicated. Okay? Magandang question daw yung mga probing questions, when you probe the attributes of the applicant. So you can do that when you do follow-up questions. Okay? So probing questions are good. Okay? Kasi they unmask the applicant. Nakikita natin yung tunay niyang kulay. That's a good question actually. Okay? Yung nagpo-probe tayo. We're trying to probe the applicant. And finally, a good interview question validates claims and claims of the applicant. Pag may mga sinabi yung aplikante na mahusay siya, na cook, or mahusay siya sa ganitong skill, we can do questions that will hopefully validate, tama ba yung sinasabi niya? Makatotohanan ba? Okay? So those are the characteristics of a good interview question. It has to be polite and considerate, clearly worded and easily understood, fair and unbiased, brief and direct to the point, probes the attributes of the applicant, and finally, it validates claims of the applicant. Now, what are the types of questions that you can ask? Okay, let's look at them one by one. Meron tayong tinatawag na dichotomous questions. Pag sinabing dichotomous questions, these are questions that provide two answers. Yes or no, agree, disagree, in favor, not in favor. Yan. Yun ang mga dichotomous questions. Pag dalawa. From the term dichotomy, meaning two. Okay? For example, do you prefer to work in the first shift or the second shift? Ayan, dalawa lang yung choices. Are you single or married? Okay? Wala na yung it's complicated. Okay? Yeah. And then, are you in favor of mandatory vaccination for employees? Yes or no, right? Have you submitted your certificates to the staff? Again, that's a yes or no question also. And finally, are you a resident of Metro Manila? Okay, those are examples of dichotomous questions. Okay? Now, let's look at the second type of questions, multiple choice. Meaning, the questions will provide more than two options or more than two possible answers. Okay? For example, which department do you prefer to be assigned? Production, quality control, warehouse, or purchasing? So notice I enumerated 4 options. Another possible multiple choice question would be, what is most important to you? A job with a high salary, a good boss, or an interesting job? So again, that's a multiple choice with 3 possible answers. Okay? And then you follow it up with why. Okay? So that's a good follow-up question. Now, another type of question to ask would be open-ended questions. Pag open-ended questions, wala kang binibigay na option. Bahala yung aplikante na sumagot according to his free will. Kung ano yung sagot na nasa sa puso niya at nasa utak niya, yun ang isasagot niya. These are straightforward questions that do not provide choices. Okay? Let's read out some examples. Can you please tell me something about yourself? Okay, that's an open-ended question. We don't know what to expect. We don't know what the applicant will say. Kung minsan magte-tell siya ng sad story about the family or will tell something about himself na surprising. So again, there's an element of surprise in an open-ended question. Favorite ko ang open-ended question because it allows the applicant to speak freely, to speak out his mind. Okay? Another example. Why did you resign from your last job? Okay, again, we don't know the possible answers here. So, let's listen. We have to use active listening. Okay, that's a very interesting open-ended question. Another example would be, why should we hire you? Aha! So this is a good question because it allows the applicant to sell himself or sell herself. Siyempre, ipopromote niya yung sarili niya. Hire me because I can offer the following. Yeah. And then, how do you see yourself 5 years from now? This is a very important question because it tells you if the employee will stay long with the company or not. So, matetest yung loyalty niya. Pangalawa, it will also reflect on the aspiration or the ambition, yung pangarap ng aplikante. Okay? Meron ba siyang pangarap? Marunong ba siyang mangarap? Maganda ba ang kanyang pangarap? We want to hire people who have aspiration because these are the positive people. Yung mga walang pangarap, yan yung mga losers. Okay? It's not good to hire them. Okay? Magiging pabigat sila. So again, that question is very nice because it allows the applicant to articulate his dreams. Okay? Maganda ba yung dream niya? Yung dream ba niya akma sa values ng company? Okay? Because what we want to hire are people who will grow. As the company is growing, they will also grow with us. Okay? Another type of open-ended question would be, what are your strengths and weaknesses? Okay? That's again a very loaded question kasi mag-enumerate siya ng mga strengths, mag-enumerate din siya ng mga weaknesses. Okay? And then meron din tayong tinatawag na situational questions. So, situational questions. These are questions that deliberately test one's values and ability to make intelligent decisions. Ba? Importante pala itong situational question kasi parang you're putting the applicant on the spot. You're putting an added pressure on the applicant. And you want to bring out the values of the applicant. Lalabas yan sa mga situational questions. Okay? They will make decisions too. Okay? Example, if you were assigned to a boss who seems to be very difficult, how will you manage getting his trust? That's a very important question. It will test the values of the applicant. Another question. If you discovered that some fellow employees in the factory are stealing finished products, what would you do? Again, this is a very interesting question because acts of dishonesty, could have 2 results. The witness may report the act of dishonesty because he or she believes it's wrong. Or maybe he will keep quiet because he does not want trouble. So which kind of employee do you want to hire? The one who cares about the company or the one who does not? Okay, so situational questions are very interesting questions. And the last type of question I will share with you would be probing questions. So ito yung mga justifications. Okay? These are follow-up questions that deliberately test one's integrity and aimed at validating previous responses. For example, why do you say so? Yeah. So parang pinapa-explain mo yung sagot niya. Can you please explain your answer? That's a follow-up question. If that is correct, how can you prove it? Or can you give examples? And finally, can you give an example of a situation? So these are interesting follow-up questions that an interviewer can ask. Okay, let's go now to recitation number 2. The question is, which do you prefer to ask an interviewee? Open-ended questions or situational questions or probing questions? Choose only one. Explain your answer. Okay? In the comment section, make sure you answer below in the comment section of video lecture number 2. So I'm going to see you around in video lecture number 3. Okay? Ciao!